Hello and welcome everyone. This is my first deck deconstruction video. I did record a wee video explaining the process a few weeks ago, and I said that the first deck that I would be deconstructing would be the first deck that I ever bought. So without further ado, we're going to get straight into it. I'm going to try and make sure these videos aren't too long, aiming for under 10 minutes. We're going to break it down into the different sections and analyse the deck in a bit of detail. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to introduce the deck. So the name of the deck is the Wrongly Terrible Hermit of Sandwane. And in this deck, we have the three houses. We have Sanctum, we have Dis, and we have Untamed. Okay, so we're going to, first of all, going to go and look at the houses in isolation and talk about some of the cards that make them quite good or maybe not so good. So we're going to start with Sanctum. Okay, so we're going to be looking at Sanctum here, and I feel that Sanctum in this deck is quite a strong house. We've got some good cards, we've got some pretty good creatures. First thing that I'm going to go over is the creatures, and this actually happens to be a horseman deck. So we've got all 4 horsemen here in this deck, which is a good start. I think the horsemen are probably a wee bit overrated, but in this deck they're pretty good. So, I mean, that's, you know, decent creatures. We also have this guy here, Grey Monk, and I feel he's a very good card in this deck. So there's only one copy, but what he does is he gives each creature 1+ armor when he's in play, and he has a reap ability that can heal damage. Now, the 1+ armor ability is really good because not only does it help you keep your monsters around for a bit longer, makes them a bit tougher, but it synergizes with some of the cards and the effects in this deck that do damage to your own creatures and your opponents. And if you're only doing 1 damage, then you're going to negate that with the armor, and because it's on your turn, really that armor, you may as well use it like that, because your opponent's not really going to be able to hit you on your turn because of the way Keyforge works. So Grey Monk, if you can keep him in play, is really good. One good way of doing that, actually, is we have Protect the Weak. So this is an okay card. I don't think it's amazing, but it does give a creature taunt. So what you can do is you can put that on a creature next to the Grey Monk to try and protect them, which is quite good. We also have some decent action cards. We've got Take Hostages. For the remainder of the turn, each time a friendly creature fights, it gains 1 ember. That's pretty good. Especially in this deck, when you've got the horsemen, you can do a lot of fighting. We've actually got another copy of Protect the Weak, which is good as well. So again, didn't realise I actually had 2 copies of that in the deck, so that's quite useful, quite a good way of protecting that Grey Knight, Grey Monk even. And finally, as another action card, we've got Shield of Justice, which is pretty good. Basically, it makes your creatures invulnerable. If you've got the horseman out and you're going to go and swing in and take care of some monsters, this will protect them and keep them on the table, which is good. But just before we kind of close off, I'm going to talk about the best card in this deck, and that would be this one here, I think, Mantle of the Zealot. What this does is it basically attaches to a creature, and it means that it's in the active house at all times. So if you play this on a Sanctum creature, then you can use it when you're declaring another house, or vice versa. You can put it on a different creature, and then when you're calling Sanctum, you can use it in any house. So this is a really, really good card. I really like this one. We've also got a Raiding Knight. Just he's a creature. He's pretty decent. You know, ties into the rest of the kind of creatures. He's got quite a lot of health and some armor. You know, and he's got a nice replay effect. Now, the only thing I will say, just before we close off Sanctum, is we do have a bit of an anti-synergy. This deck has quite a lot of creatures in it, and we have this card here, Glorious Few, which is very situational. And basically, you get an ember for every creature your opponent controls in excess of you. In this deck, there's lots of creatures, so you generally want to get them out on the table to do work for you, which means this card, a lot of the times, is a dead card. So it's not really great in this deck. So overall, Sanctum in summary, some powerful creatures, some pretty good cards. Grey Monk's really good in this deck. It'd be great if you could have maybe have 2 copies of him. So overall, I'm quite happy with Sanctum in this deck. Okay, so we're now going to talk about the second house in this deck, and that would be Dis. And Dis is a house I really like. And in this deck, it's a pretty solid house. There's a lot of good stuff, and some not so great stuff that doesn't really work in the deck, you know, as much as we would like. So we'll start off with the kind of good stuff, and I thought we would look at some of the artifacts in this deck because it's got some really good ones. First of all, we've got Key to Dis. So this is one that basically you drop it down. It's an Omni, so you can use it in a future turn with any house, and it clears the board. So this is a really good control card. It's one of the few kind of creature control cards that this deck has. So it's a really handy one to have. It's not as fast as Gateway to Dis because it's not instant, but you don't take any chains, so I quite like Key to Dis, and you can pop it at any point after you've put it down. We also have a wee bit of archiving, one copy of Library of the Damned, and that's just an action to archive a card. Quite useful. Not a lot of archiving you can do, but it gives you a wee bonus when you choose this as your active house, so pretty good. We also have Lash of Broken Dreams, and this is basically a card that you can use to slow your opponent down. So you tap it, and it basically causes their keys to cost +3 Ember on their turn when they're forging them. So this is a good way of allowing you to catch up and slow your opponent down. So it's quite a good one, but again, you need to call the house this to use it, so you can't use it every turn. We've also got a few good action cards here. We've got one, I've only seen this in this deck actually. I've played quite a few decks, so I've only really seen this once. I've got 2 copies of it. We've got Gongoozle. And Gongoozle is basically a bit like Punch in Brobnar, but a strictly better version. It does 3 damage to a creature. If it's not destroyed, the owner discards a random card from their hand. That's really good. You can either use it as removal, or you can use it to hurt a guy and then get a discard. A lot of the times I'll play it for the discard because I like being able to cause my opponents to lose cards, because it messes up with their plans. Also, it gives you an Ember for playing it as well. Finally, we've got one card that I really like. Again, it's quite situational, but it's one that I really like in the game, and that's Control the Weak. Control the Weak basically allows you to pick a house, and your opponent has to call that house for their next turn. So it's all about timing. You've got to try to think of an optimal time to use it. Sometimes it's a good idea when they put a lot of guys out, in play, or like an artifact. You can make them choose another faction, so the next turn they can't capitalise on all the guys they put out. Or if you think there's a weaker faction in their deck, weaker house, you can get them to call that. So those are some of the kind of good cards. Now going to look at some of the creatures. So there's not that many creatures, unfortunately, in this and for this. We've only got 3, but they are pretty good ones. Well, we've actually got 4, actually, sorry, but we'll come to the last one. So we've got 4, which is not bad. So a third of the cards are creatures. So the first one we've got is Pit Demon. He's a strength 5. He has an action, Steal. Steal's quite useful, especially in this, when you don't have Shadow. You don't have as many steals. The only thing is it's an action, so he's not reaping and he's not attacking when he's doing that. He's a strength 5, so he's quite good, but you're not going to use the steal ability all the time. We've got Guardian Demon. I quite like Guardian Demon, it's quite a solid card. So play, fight, or reap, heal up to 2 damage from a creature, deal that amount of damage to another creature. So it's a wee bit of a control, and it fires every time you play him. The only thing is you need to have a target to heal. So if you don't have any damaged creatures, it doesn't really do much, but it can be quite a good card. Finally, this is one of my favourite disc creatures. I love this card. This is Snudge. Snudge is amazing. I love Snudge so much. The only issue is try to keep him and make sure he sticks around. So fight or reap, so not play unfortunately. Return an artifact or flank creature to its owner's hand. This is great. First of all, it's artifact removal, and yeah, okay, they can play it back. You're not discarding it or destroying it or whatever, but it gets it out of play, and it means you have to waste a turn putting it back out. This is great for getting rid of threats on the board and forcing your opponent to play them. It's also great for creatures that have upgrades on them, because as soon as you bounce them back to hand, the upgrades go into the bin, which is great. So Snudge is fantastic. I really, really, really like this card. Okay, so that's the kind of good stuff. Most of it is good. We're going to look at 2 cards that I don't think work very well in this deck. Well, not so much don't work very well. One of them's not very powerful, and the other one doesn't really work with the deck. It's a bit of an anti-synergy. So the first one is the Terror, and this is a 5 strength, and this is it's a good turn 1 play, but other than that, it's hard to use. Unless you've got maybe Shadow as your other faction, and you've got a lot of Steel, and you can get your opponent down to 0 Ember after they've forged, or you time it right. Generally, the only time you're going to get that benefit is as a turn 1 play if you're player 1. So play if your opponent has no Ember, gain 2 Ember. Other than that, he's a Strength 5, which is okay. It's just not great, you know. As turn 1 play, you can mull for it, pretty good. But other than that, I don't think it's a fantastic card. Finally, though, the card that really doesn't work, it could maybe work, but generally is another anti-synergy, and this would be an artifact Soul Snatcher. So every time a creature is destroyed, the owner gets 1 Ember. Now this deck has a lot of creatures. It has a lot of horsemen who come out, do their stuff, and then you can bring the horsemen back, you know, with that 1 horseman that returns them to your hand. So your creatures, they're going to be dying quite a lot. Well, your creatures aren't going to be dying, but you're going to be trying to dominate your opponents because it's a creature-heavy deck. Your creatures have to do work for you, so you're more likely to be taking out their creatures and trying to keep yours in play. So it's not, yeah. I mean, it can work, but you don't want to play it every time. You really need. It depends. If you're behind in the game, then and you've got creatures on the board, which is unlikely, but then maybe try and catch you back up. But generally speaking, I don't think it works very well in this deck. Okay, so that was this. So overall, this is again a good faction in this deck. So along with Sanctum, pretty strong so far. So we're going to now look at Untamed. Okay, here we go for the third and final house. And this is where the deck suffers a wee bit. I feel that this, I'll just say this right up front, I feel that this is definitely the weakest house in the deck. And there's nothing wrong with Untamed. I think Untamed is a good house, but it's just the combination of cards here. There's a lot of stuff that really doesn't do a lot of work for you, I find. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll start with the good. Again, let's start with the positive. There are some really good cards in this deck, in this house, should I say. First of all, is this one here. I love this one here. This is Witch of the Eye. And basically she is a 3 strength, but she has a reap ability, and she allows you to return a card from your discard to your hand. You can make some really awesome combos with her, one of which we'll get to just in a second, but she's just generally good. If you can keep her on the table and protect her, again we've got Taunt, remember, in Sanctum. If you can keep her safe, she can do lots of work for you. So she's a really, really good card. We also have Dew Fairy as a creature. Dew Fairy's pretty good. So basically when it reaps, it gets 2 Ember. Yeah, so it's really good at reaping. And it's elusive, so it's quite hard for your enemy to take care of. So yeah, Dew Fairy's a solid card. You know, good one. Now, this is a card I really like. I don't think it's a super powerful card, but I really like it. And it combos quite well with the Witch of the Eye that we just talked about. And that is Nocturnal Maneuver. So Nocturnal Maneuver, first of all, gives you an Ember for playing it, and then it allows you to exhaust up to 3 creatures when you play it. What you can do, which is great, is if you've got Witch of the Eye out, then you have this in hand, you play it, and you call Untamed, you play it, you exhaust their creatures, you then reap with so you've got an Ember for playing this, you then reap with your Witch of the Eye, get another Ember, and then you pull this back to hand, and the next turn you call Untamed and you play it again, and you can actually stun lock your opponent. So if they've not got a way of getting like other creatures out, or an action card that changes the game state, you can keep locking them down by playing this over and really, really slow them down. There was one game where I did this 4 times. Basically, my turn was the 4th. I did this thing 4 times in a row and got way ahead of my opponent because they really couldn't react, because they just didn't have anything in hand, you know, that really could get them out of that hole. So yeah, Nocturnal Maneuver I think is a really great card. It's hard to get that combo together. It's a fragile combo, but if you can keep pulling it off, it's really good. And even then, it's just a solid card in its own right. Anything that stuns or exhausts cards, you know, for control, I think is good. I think that's really powerful in this game. Okay, so those were the really good cards. We'll look at some of the kind of middling cards. So the cards that are okay in the deck. We've got 2 copies of Regrowth. Regrowth is pretty good actually. It allows you to return a creature to your hand, and it gives you an Ember. So that's really good usually. But the only thing is, we don't have, other than Witch of the Eye, we don't have amazing creatures, which we'll come to. But yeah, I mean, it's a pretty good card. It gets you an Ember, and it gets you a guy back. Plus, you can use it for creatures out of house, but you just can't play them the same turn. So yeah, we've got 1 copy of Vigor. and that gives you an Ember, and it allows you to heal up to 3 damage. If you heal 3 damage, gain 1. There's quite a lot of beefy creatures in this deck, so it's got a bit of synergy there. If you get the full heal, you get an Ember, which is pretty good. It's an okay card, you know, nothing to write home about, but, you know, if it's situational, and it can be quite good. Finally, we've got Ritual of the Hunt. This could be an amazing card. In this deck, I think it's okay. You get an Ember, and it's an Omni, so you can use it later, in a later turn, and if you sacrifice it, and for the remainder of the turn, you can use friendly Untamed creatures. That can be powerful. If you've got the Untamed creatures out, you've got your combo, then you can use it even when you call a different house, so it can be quite good. But again, if we had really, really good creatures in this deck, then it would be better. So it's okay. It's worth playing. It's probably worth playing over discarding, but I don't feel that I always get full value from it. Okay, so those were the kind of good cards and the decent cards. We're now going to look at the rest of the creatures in this house, and yeah, this is where the house really. This is really where the deck falls down a wee bit, because we've not got really great creatures. So first of all, we've got Niffleape. Yes, we have 3 copies of Niffleape and no queen to be seen. So they really don't do a lot of work. Yeah, okay, they ignore taunt and elusive, so they're good at taking care of these low power shadow cards that can be, that have good abilities and can be big threats. They can get around taunt, but just Niffleape without a beefing, without a bonus from the Niffle Queen, they're not very good. And to have 3 copies of them, they're all right. If you can get them out and you can get them to reap, then they're okay, but not really impressed. The next card, I don't really like this one at all. This one here is Murmuk, and it's a strength 3, and it has an ongoing ability. Your opponent's keys cost 1 extra Ember. He's a strength 3, he's got no other abilities, he's easy to take care of, so it's hard to keep him in the table. 1 extra Ember slows your opponent down, but not any more than stealing an Ember, or capturing an Ember. It's just not good enough. As an ongoing ability, if the strength of the card was higher, the power, it would be okay, but a 3 power, an ability that slightly slows down your opponent only when it's on the table, it's just not very good. So I'm not a fan of Murmuk. I don't think it's a very good card. It's worth playing because they get another body in the table, but really it's not brilliant. Finally, we've got Ancient Bear, and I think this is one card that looks a lot better, on the surface than it actually is. So it's a strength 5, which is quite good. It's got assault 2. Before this creature attacks, deal 2 damage to the enemy. Now the problem with this is that well, actually, it probably could. I'll need to check the rulings, but it could work against elusive creatures, so it could be quite good for taking care of those threats. Because you're still doing an attack, and it's not really damage. Yeah, I don't know. I think elusive might protect it because no damage is dealt or received, so I don't think it would break elusive. But the problem with this game is there's not really a lot of low strength creatures that are big threats. They don't have some sort of ability to protect them, whether it's hazardous or elusive, or something like that. So a lot of the time, Ancient Bear is that damage, that 2 damage, is not going to be lethal, which means your opponent is going to hit you back. The only times it will be lethal is if it's a really low strength creature that's easy to hit, or if it's a creature that's already been damaged previously and you're finishing off. But most of the time in this game, I find when you attack, the damage is lethal, and sometimes both ways. So Ancient Bear, again, it can be okay, but I just don't think it's a great card. And the assault only works on your turn when you're attacking, so your opponent knows that, then they're probably going to attack it on their turn, so that you don't get your assault bonus, basically. It's okay. I just think that people look at it, oh, it's got assault 2 and it's a 5 body, and yeah, but it's quite hard to use, so yeah, I don't think it's a great card. Okay, so there's Untamed. This is where I feel where the deck falls down a wee bit. The Untamed portion of the deck is not amazing, other than that 1 combo and a few decent action cards. Ritual of the Hunt would be a lot more powerful if the creatures were better. So overall, a bit of a disappointment. Okay, so just to tie off the video, we're going to be looking at some of the other categories that I spoke about in my, how I'm going to deconstruct these decks. And the first one, and I'm just going to refer to my little cheat sheet here because I'm just going to do it all as one section. Okay, so if you just bear with me. First one we're going to look at is the synergy. Okay, the main synergies in the deck. And I've kind of went through these just when we looked at the houses in isolation. But the main synergies are, you've got the Horsemen, which synergize with each other. You've got Grey Monk, that gives creatures armor and beefs them up. And you've got a few ways of damaging creatures that damage yours but also damage theirs, mainly your Horsemen, and it kind of protects you from that. So there's some synergy there. The other big synergy is the combo with the Witch of the Eye and Nocturnal Maneuver, or even other cards, even things that you could bring back like Gongoozle and things like that and play them to get, to take out threats. So those are kind of the main synergies in the deck, and there's not a huge ton of synergy. Taunt to protect your Witch of the Eye as well, I suppose you could say, synergy, because it's a real threat that your enemy probably will want to take, or your opponent will want to take care of. So those are really the main synergies in the deck, and regrowth as well can help you pull back creatures, so to get you your Witch of the Eye back. So they've got a few tools at your disposal when it comes to that. The next thing would be control. There's quite a lot of control in this deck. We've got removal in the form of Control the Weak. We've got Gongoozle for hitting targets. We've got Key to This, and we've got Snudge, which is, as I said, a great card for bouncing things back to hand. So there's quite a lot of removal in this deck, which is really good. Stun and Exhaust. We've got Nocturnal Maneuver, which I said is a really good card. I really like it. We've not got any stun in this deck, which is unfortunate, because I feel that stun is one of the more powerful control mechanics in Keyforge. I like stun. I like having things like Tremor and the Blinding Light. I think they're really powerful effects. There's none in this deck, which is a wee bit unfortunate. Purge. There's no Purge in this deck. So if you've got if there's like a card that's a threat that keeps coming back, and you just want to remove it from the game, you've got no way of doing so. It's okay. I mean, not all decks have Purge, so it would be nice to have it, but we don't have it. So yeah, it is what it is. Archives, we've got one copy of Library of the Broken Dreams. It'll do a bit of work for you if you can get out early, but it's not an archive heavy deck. So yeah, and archives are a really powerful mechanic in the game. It's okay. I mean, you've got something at least. Okay, so that's control. Next thing, we're going to move on to Ember generation. How does this deck generate Ember, and how does it win the game? Well, first of all, out of the 36 cards, 12 of them I have identified give you Ember when you play them, which is not bad. So 1/3 of the deck, you play a card, you're going to get some Ember, usually just one. So you'll get a wee bit from just playing your cards. And remember, you can use regrowth to pull things back. So there's a wee bit of recursion in this deck. So there is ways of getting cards back. So yeah, you can maybe push that a wee bit more. Other than that, the only really other way you can get Ember in this deck is by reaping with creatures. So the real battle plan is getting your creatures on the table and keeping them on the table and just getting them to reap. Especially things like Dew Fairy, who get like 2 Ember every time they reap. And you use your creatures to control your opponent and try and shut them down and make sure they don't, their creatures don't interfere with your creatures. So really, that is the game plan for this deck. I found is you get your creatures out, keep them out, try and get your combo, your Witch of the Eye combo if you can. Other than that, keep your guys on the table and reap when you can, and fight when you need to remove threats. And that's really it. It's a pretty straightforward deck to play, to be honest. So finally, this is the last bit. We're going to talk about the fun before we go into the overall rating of the deck. It's an okay deck. I like that combo. The Horsemen are kind of okay to use. I think they're overrated, but they're quite fun to play. I love Snudge, and Control the Weak's a good card as well for so there's some fun cards, but overall, the overall strategy to the deck is not, it's kind of straightforward. There's not really a lot of interesting kind of sleight of hand plays that you can do, or things that are really going to trip your opponent up. So I'd say fun, it's probably about average. It's an okay deck to play, it's not the funnest deck I've got, but it's solid, you know. So it's okay. I'd be quite happy to play it, but I definitely have decks that I think are more fun to play. Okay, now that I've bought a few more. Okay, so the final verdict of the deck after our detailed and thorough evaluation. Where do I feel it sits? Well, I think in balance, the two houses, the Sanctum and the Dis, pretty good. Yeah, Untamed really lets it down for the most part, other than that one wee combo. So overall, I think I'm gonna have to give it probably a 3 out of 6. It's a tough call. Is it over average or under average? And I feel that at the moment it's to be fair, it's probably about average. It really is probably about average. But yeah, and it's only really because of the Horseman. There's not really enough. There is a bit of synergy in this deck. There's not a ton of synergy, and it's too straightforward. If you've got against an opponent who's got a lot of control, who can really keep a handle on your creatures, there's not a lot you can do. You don't really have a lot of disruption in the deck, other than a few key cards. It's like a bit of a potpourri. You've got a wee bit of everything, but there's not really any great focus other than getting your creatures out and keeping them in the table and getting them to do work. The Horsemen probably bring the deck up slightly. Again, I'm not for one. I mean, I was very lucky to pull a Horseman deck, for my first deck. I almost considered selling it. The main reason I didn't was because it was my first deck, so I felt a bit bad about selling my first ever Keyforge deck. But even then, I don't think it's a particularly good Horseman deck, but they do bring it up a wee bit, so because they are pretty decent creatures. So overall, I would give it a 3 out of 6. It's about average, slightly under average maybe, and it's okay to play. So it's a decent first deck, but it's certainly not my best deck and certainly not my favourite deck. So there you go. That was our deck deconstruction of the wrongly terrible Hermit of Sandwane. Try and remember the name. So I hope you've enjoyed. If you have, please like and subscribe. In the future, I will be doing some other deck deconstructions. I'll be looking at the cards in a bit of detail. And I mean, this is quite a good series to watch, really, just to get an idea of some of the cards that are in decks and what they do and how they might combo, within that deck. But also, you can maybe see it within your own decks as well. So I was thinking of maybe doing like a video just doing a card analysis, where I look at cards individually. But really, the way Keyforge works, you need to have context. One card could be amazing in one deck and not amazing in another deck because of the combos and the synergies. So I think it's a good idea just to take my decks that I am going to be playing and actually break them down and look at how these cards work within those decks. And again, these are my decks, so you're probably not going to play them. But, I thought it might be interesting to try and break these decks down, try and analyse them so that you can maybe do it with your own decks. And get an idea of what makes them tick, what makes them good, how they could be improved, if you could change them. Anyway, so I hope you've enjoyed. As I said, if you did, like and subscribe. I'm hoping to make more content if I get a good reception. This has been recorded right before New Year, so I hope you have a fantastic, hope you have a great Christmas and you have a fantastic New Year, and I'll see you all in 2019. Bye for now.